crucial during these times. We are social creatures, and times of social isolation can seem torturous, but it is temporary. Much like the growing pains of our youth, we will get through this. During these times of social distancing, do all you can to maintain your physical, mental, and emotional welfare. Your family and the community needs you to emerge strong. Hashtag stay home. K-Man.
Burger King has been your family restaurant for many years. Bringing you delicious food in a safe environment has always been our number one priority. And until further notice, you'll only be able to visit us via drive-thru.
Get your motor running, pulling out past Red Bay, looking for a BK at whatever time of day. Burger King drive-thru.
Burger King's drive-thru is open at 7 Mile Beach, Waterfront Georgetown, Walkers Road, or Red Bay for breakfast, lunch, or dinner.
Roll back. Roll back. Every Wednesday and Thursday, all Rubus stations are rolling back the price on all fuel purchases by 20 cents. Every customer will save 20 cents on every gallon of fuel purchased on Wednesday and Thursday. Every customer. Only at Rubus. Roll back. Roll back.
The Island Heritage Insurance Office is currently closed to walk-in customers per their COVID-19 response protocol. However, they are still available to handle your business via their website at islandheritage.com.ky. Email at customercare@islandheritage.com.ky for general inquiries, and claims at islandheritage.com.ky for general insurance claims. Island Heritage. Experience insurance the Island Heritage way.
Live from Star 927 Studios in the center of Cayman's capital city, Georgetown. This is Straight Talk with Ruth Anna.
Good evening, everybody. You are tuned into Straight Talk, brought to you exclusively by Star 92.7 Premium Radio. I am your host, Ruth Anna Young, always honored to be your host here on Straight Talk every Monday through Thursday from 5 to 6 p.m. right here and nowhere else other than Star 92.7. It is 5:03 on the Star 92.7 clock, and it is the 19th of May, winding our way on through the month. Thank you for those who continue to tune in each and every afternoon. Hope you guys are staying safe. And 943-3700 is always the line in studio. You can also WhatsApp me 324-1565, or you can email me at straighttalkci@gmail.com. Today is Tuesday, which means it's Current Affairs Tuesday. I do have Miss Miles Ruby from the Family Resource Center in the virtual studio with me this afternoon. She will spend until 6 o'clock with me talking about tomorrow's upcoming parenting webinar, Positive Parenting Through COVID-19. It is also her first time in the studio with me, which means we have a Who Your Mama Is segment coming up this afternoon. I know that the last visit from FRC, when they were kicking off this series of parenting webinars, proved to be quite popular. A lot of parents chimed in, asked a number of questions. So she will be here to share a bit about what they're going to be doing tomorrow and doing in the webinar tomorrow, as well as have the opportunity to ask her questions as well. But you guys know the deal. Before we go any further into our conversations here on Straight Talk, we always start our time together with the reading of today's Daily Bread. So today's Daily Bread is entitled Where Choices Lead. And today's scripture comes from Psalm 1 verse 6 and reads, "The Lord watches over the way of the righteous." So the writer writes, with no cell service and no trial map, we had just our memory of a fixed map at the trail ahead to guide us. More than an hour later, we finally emerged from the woods into the parking lot. Having missed the turnoff that would have made for a half-mile hike, we took a much longer trek. Life can be like that. We have to ask not simply if something is right or wrong, but where it will lead. Psalm 1 compares two ways of living, that of the righteous, those who love God, and that of the wicked, the enemies of those who love God. The righteous flourish like a tree, but the wicked blow away like chaff. This psalm reveals what flourishing really looks like. The person who lives it out is dependent on God for renewal and life. So how do we become that kind of person? Among other things, Psalm 1 urges us to disengage from destructive relationships and unhealthy habits and to delight in God's instruction. Ultimately, the reason for our flourishing is God's attentiveness to us. The Lord watches over the way of the righteous. Commit your way to God. Let Him redirect you from old patterns that lead to nowhere, and allow the scriptures to be the river that nourishes the root system of your heart. Thanks be to God for that word today. As always, here on Straight Talk, we remind you, we encourage you to spend time each and every day focused on His word, meditating on His grace and how awesome He is, whether it be in the morning or the evening or right here with me, Monday through Thursday on Straight Talk. With that, I invite Miss Miles Ruby into our conversation this afternoon. Miss Miles, how are you there?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
I'm good. Yes, our sound is good. Welcome to Straight Talk for the very first time. And I think it's particularly interesting that your first time with me is in the virtual studio. So welcome, welcome, welcome. How have you been, I guess, faring and dealing through this very interesting time of our life?
Well, I am no stranger to the perils of this social isolation and all these changes and uncertainty. I think it's all about perspective, and feel instead of saying, I have to stay home, I reframe it. I get to stay home and work from home and still make a living and help people.
Mhm.
And so I have to remind myself that some days, I think it's getting to a lot of us, especially the parents who are not used to a lot of these changes, working from home, parenting, and teaching their kids remotely. It's just, this remote learning, it's just been a real challenge. And, it's been a difficult for all of us, even those of us that are equipped, with maybe some more tools. And so that's why, this time is so important that we educate ourselves and maybe try some new things that we wouldn't have thought of trying before. Because if what we're doing isn't working, we don't want to keep doing that. Right. So,
Correct.
right.
Correct. What a pleasure to have you on. I
It's
think
my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
my pleasure. But before we go any further, we have to stick with Straight Talk, custom and tradition. And so it is your first time on Straight Talk with me. And so the audience is dying to know who your mama is.
So you need to know, like, my real mother.
That's entirely up to you. Some people share the literal answer in addition to, but we definitely want to know more about you and stuff as well. So some people
Mhm.
definitely answer it literally and then go on to
Mhm.
talk a bit about themselves.
Well, I'm not from here. I'm actually from the States.
Mhm.
Been here almost, going on 9 years. Well, no, 10 years now. So, um, I've chosen Cayman to be my home, and I do miss my mother. She was a young mother when she had me, so she's only 20 years older than me, and 22 years older than me. And she is far away in the States, and so we try to, talk to each other through WhatsApp and through Zoom and that kind of thing. But yeah, she's been one that's really helped guide me and show me, discipline and hard work, and how important education is, and how to, persevere. I think, she, it was rough for her when she was younger, and she made the best of a situation and came out doing well. It's like sometimes you're handed a bad deck of cards, and it's how you play them.
Yeah,
It's easy to play a good hand of cards, but when you're dealt a bad deck, how well do you play a bad hand? So,
got it.
she really worked hard, took care of us, and I really admire her for that. I'm very proud of her for that. Because back in the day, because I'm no spring chicken myself, it was, the culture and society was very different,
Mhm.
and looked very differently on, you know, uh, you know, divorce and single moms raising kids on their own. So,
Yeah.
it's, and I'm a product of that to some degree. She got remarried when I was 8. So, I was very fortunate to have a wonderful stepfather who I hold very dear to my heart. But it everyone needs their mother, and it is hard not having her here, but we do stay in touch. Thank goodness for technology. I get to
Oh,
stay in touch with her, right?
certainly.
Through technology. Back in the early days, we wrote letters, or we had to, dial the phone and call collect, because I couldn't afford to
Oh my
call her
gosh,
otherwise.
I almost forgot about that, like collect phone calls. Wow. That is
Yeah.
so true. Oh, we could go and have a whole show about the norms of a time gone by, I guess you could say.
Mhm.
But if you could share a bit about, your background and
Mhm.
what your background is, professionally and what
Okay.
role you play within FRC here in Cayman and that kind of.
Sure. I've been with the Family Resource Center for 8 years, and I am a program facilitator. I'm a certified parenting coach, but I started, in college. I majored in sociology. I've worked with so many different populations. I started out working with battered women. Then I worked with disadvantaged teenagers. I worked with adults with um, developmental disabilities, intellectual disabilities, in group homes. I worked with in long-term care facilities. I worked with the elderly for many years in assisted living and the nursing homes. I was a social worker in that capacity and administrator. And I worked also in mental health. I was a mental health supports manager and help people who were in the community, trying to keep them productive citizens, keeping them stable out of the out of the hospitals. So, um, and that's what I was doing before I came here. So I really love what I do now, because I feel like everything I did leading up to this position and job has prepared me, to work with families. I'm also a mother of 3 grown daughters.
Oh,
They're
you're a
20.
girl mom.
Yeah, I have 3 daughters. They're 26, 23, and 21.
Mm.
And I have 2 on island and 1 away in South Africa going to university, but
Oh, wow.
1 still at home. And so I've been a parent for a long time. I have a lot of wisdom. I've learned a lot through my mistakes, through trial and error. As my first daughter calls herself the crash test dummy. You know,
Shout out
I
to the
was,
oldest siblings.
yes, I know.
I'm in the first child crew. I'm with
But you
her.
know how it is. By the 3rd one, you're like, hey, don't run with those scissors. Make sure they're pointed down. Or the first one, they drool. You're like, oh my God, what's happening, right? So,
Yeah.
and that was 26 years ago. I was 26 when I had her, which is so interesting because she's the same age that I was when I had her. So with parenting, I mean, I always say it's never too late to be a better parent. And I'm still learning from my children as a mother, even though they're adults now and they survived their childhood. Um, but yes, so I really feel very blessed to work with the Family Resource Center. I get to wear a lot of hats. I get to do a lot of different things, such as public awareness campaigns with International Women's Month. We're having a big training next week on domestic violence intervention training program. So I get to pull a lot of the different aspects that I used before in what I do now, and the different hats that I wear, and the different roles that I play through working with families, working with children, through our SNAP program,
Mhm.
through our public awareness campaigns, spreading talking about social responsibility and spreading that awareness, and also drawing from my own experience as a parent and my own training. I've been very blessed to have a lot of upskills, training through the Family Resource Center to upskill me. And, I'm a trained SNAP facilitator. I do darkness to light training. I'm a collaborative proactive solutions trainer. So, I mean, I can work with families in that CPS model. So I feel like, I've got a lot of different things to offer our families.
Yes.
And I really enjoy that piece. I really enjoy the parent coaching piece and working with families. I feel like that's where I can do the most or be the most effective and make the most change, because change needs to start in the home, and that's where parents, we have the most influence. Our
Absolutely.
children look at us, we're their first teachers, and so they look at us and mimic us and watch every little thing we do. And so it's so important that as a parent, we pay attention to what are we modeling.
And
And I've learned a lot just from, when I see something in my child that I don't like, a lot of times it triggers me because it's something I've done or said that
a
I didn't
reminder.
like.
Yeah, it's a reminder of where they got it from, and that starts
Mhm.
it starts so young. My today actually, my daughter is officially 16 months old, right? So I'm just getting started on my journey really, and even
Mhm.
at that age, they do things, and you're like, oh. That is my child, right? Um,
Yep.
when they imitate you, and certainly I know all of this experience will, as with other times in your life, I'm sure will come to bear tomorrow as well, along with some of
Mhm.
the other webinars. You are the facilitator, or at least one of them, on
Mhm.
tomorrow's parenting webinar being hosted by the FRC. And I would like to, because I know I'm very cognizant of the fact that people come in and out of the radio broadcast and the video stream, catching bits of information. And so I definitely want to, before we get into some of the meat of the matter, I want to ensure that everyone knows what time tomorrow's webinar is, what's the topic of tomorrow's webinar as well, and how do they get registered if they aren't already.
All right, thank you. Yes, the webinar is tomorrow on our Facebook page at 4:30, and you do need to register to attend. You can email frc@gov.ky. You can give us a call at 949-0006. We also have the flyer on our website, frc.gov.ky, and you go to the section there under parenting resources, and you can see where you can register. So there are a lot of different doors that you could access to register. I believe you can also register on the Facebook page as well, on the FRC Facebook page. And I do have a guest with me tomorrow. We felt it was very important to bring in some other experts as well. And so I have June South Robinson. She's an inclusion specialist with the Department of Education,
Okay.
John Gray and Clifton Hunter. And we're going to be speaking about positive parenting during COVID-19, handling difficult or challenging behaviors. And she's going to focus a little bit more on around schoolwork, around homework,
Mhm.
because that's her expertise. And so, but I'll be focusing more on parenting tips and tools and perspectives on how to handle some of these challenging experiences that our children are giving us during these uncertain times, because we may be seeing our children in a new light.
Mhm.
We might have always thought, well, they don't ever do that at home. When the teacher
Yeah.
was like, they're doing this, they're doing that. So, and vice versa, right? Maybe they didn't have issues at school, and now they're having issues at home. And you're like, well, what's happening? We didn't have issues before. So it's very important, I think, especially for parents to. We talked last week about positive parenting and really having that relationship with your child, because a child needs to care what you think in order for any kind of discipline to be effective. And what does that look like? And we went into a lot of different aspects of what that looks like. What is positive parenting? What isn't? What is
Sorry,
it not?
just so for people who may not have caught any of the earlier shows that I did on this, while we're talking about the webinar that's coming up tomorrow, this is a series of webinars, parenting webinars that the FRC, the Family Resource Center, that started, I want to say, is this your third or fourth week?
We started the end of April. I believe this is our fourth one. We have a total of 6. So we have, this week is, I believe, the fourth.
Mhm.
The next week is handling stress. And then the last week is how to connect as a family,
Mm.
basically.
Okay, and so this was done as a series. I
Mhm.
know that parenting workshops and these types of events and resources aren't something new that FRC is offering. You've just taken it to a webinar platform now because of the fact that people can't come and sit at FRC and partake in the free food that's normally part of all of this and all of the events. But I've said it to previous FRC guests, and I'll say it to you as well. One thing I'm very appreciative of, because I know that the public as a whole, we need as much assistance as possible through a time like this, that you guys quickly pivoted and went virtual, right? Went into webinars and virtual sessions so that people could still continue to learn and get tools even from their homes or their offices. And as you said, this time has definitely brought about some very unique challenges and questions that parents and caregivers are now trying to navigate. And so when I heard that you guys were rolling out these webinars, I thought how fitting. And I know that over the period of weeks on a number of different occasions, including the visits from FRC, parents have continued to dial in and ask questions and really seek out resources. My mom, who is tuned in via Facebook, says, "Hello ladies, you both are amazing. These resources are priceless, particularly during these times." And one of the things that I will continue to share with the public, I remember, I want to say back in about 2009, and I know it's a program that's still running. Well, I don't know if you guys are going to be doing it right now, but generally still part of the FRC suite of offerings is the Family Skills Program. Right. And my mother, who is forever trying to be a better parent. And at that time, we were, as far as I was concerned, we were all adults at the time. Right. But my mom still thought it necessary and fit. And I'm so glad she did, to say, it's never too late for us to be able to develop better skills as a family. And, and I generally consider us, me, my younger sister, my younger brother, and with my mom, a very close-knit family. But, it may be by virtue of her pressing and insisting on things of this nature and saying we should go and do this, right? And I had a lot of fun because I was already I want to say I was already working at the time, and all that. And she still said, no, let's go do it. And at the time, FRC was out on the waterfront, like like upstairs.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, here
Okay.
a number of years ago. And I thought it was, and there were families, such a wide variety of families with kids of different ages and stuff. And I remember making a flyer, and we had to name our group, and we named it Wilma and the Three Barefoot Bandits, right?
You made your little family flag, right?
Yeah. And so from that was my first real exposure to the resources at Family Resource Center. And so it sticks with me. And so when I see you guys continuing to roll out what I think are very critical services, and just finding ways to adjust to what the public needs. And what, if you don't mind me asking, what are some of through the first 3 webinars that you guys have hosted, what are some of the questions and challenges that have, I guess, unearthed themselves in the three past webinars that you guys have done? And I mean, I know that it's facilitated by different people, but in terms of whatever discussions you guys have had.
Right. I think the one that keeps popping up the most is, how do I homeschool my child? How do I create structure and routine? They don't want to do the work. They don't want to join their Zoom class. They don't want me to be their teacher anymore, and it's hard. And so we have to maybe do things a little differently and get a little creative, and maybe look at our children differently. I think so often we'll say, oh, my child's giving me a hard time, when actually they're having a hard time. And so if we look at them a little differently, if we look at a child differently, we see a different child. And behavior, we always say, is communication with our children. And so, we want our parents to have as many tools in their parenting tool belt as possible. And that also includes perspective. It's not just about what can I do when they don't listen, or when they don't do what they're supposed to do. How do I correct them? It's not just about correction, because I always say you need to connect before you correct. It's so important that we have that relationship with our child, so that we can understand what's driving the behavior and not just jump into punishing and correcting, but get curious around that behavior and think, what's going on? Because our children, they don't have all their gray matter until they're 12. And then it takes another 12 to 13 years for that brain to fully develop and be finished, basically. And so, as adults, we're having a hard enough time with everything going on, with all these changes, all these uncertainties. So you can imagine what it's like for our little ones who are trying to sort out all these different emotions they're feeling and changes. And, how can we help them in that journey and not just correct them, but, guide them? Because I always like to think of parenting as, think of a parent as a shepherd, and their children are their sheep. And when you think about the shepherd with his crook, he uses it to guide the sheep. And if one starts straying, he uses the curved end of the crook to bring them in closer, so they don't stray. And if there's danger, he uses the other end of the stick to ward off, the predators and to protect their sheep. And so if we think of ourselves as parents, as shepherds, we have to, they're very delicate and they need guidance, and they need to be shown the way. And you think about the sheep trust the shepherd to keep them safe, just like our children trust us to keep them safe. And, once children feel safe, seen, and heard, their anxieties go down, and a lot of times the behaviors disappear, and there's no need to correct.
Sorry to interrupt you, but I want to make sure that the question popped into my mind a few minutes back. I know some parents who may not have tapped into these webinars yet, or any similar such resource. And I've seen the dialogue on Facebook, but just to put it out there for the benefit of parents. Now, for the parent that may be feeling like it's just my child, it's just my child, it's misbehaving more, or doesn't want to buckle down to study this week, or whatever the case may be. Are we seeing a general rise in acting out or misbehavior, or unsettled behavior, which, outside of what the child would normally be during this time? Is that happening,
Most definitely, because I'm still working with the parents that I was working with before this happened. I'm just doing it in a different platform. We're doing Zoom sessions, we're doing phone calls, and they are having a lot more challenge. They started coming to me to get some, parent coaching on their child that was maybe already giving them some trouble, or they're having difficulty managing. And so what I found so often is so many parents do think it's just them, that they're alone. And I think one thing the webinars also help the parents realize is that they're not alone. It's not just them. We all are in this situation together, but we may be experiencing it differently. We might, we're on the same boat, but some are in the front, some are in the back getting tossed around, some are in the middle going, this is not that rocky, so right. It's all about perspective and also what you're experiencing and where you are, and the dynamics of your household. We have single parents, we have parents who are working remotely with a toddler, so there's a lot of different things going on, so that we can't just throw everyone in one boat and say, oh, we're all in the same boat. It's very different for different people based on their circumstance. Like I said, where they're sitting in the boat. If you're up on the deck, you're going to feel a lot different than if you're in the gully, right? So I get very nauseous down below. So,
me too. Me too. And
yes.
Some social media post that says we're all in the same storm, but not in the same boat. So that's a different perspective too.
Right.
That, some people just in an entirely different boat, and we're all, we're just all kind of journeying through this storm, that, based on our own individual circumstances and such. But I do know we are coming up to our first break of our time together. We are already at the halfway mark. It is already 5:30.
Wow.
Yeah.
Time flies.
Yes, I definitely have a few more questions for you when we do return from the break. And thank you to all those who are locking it in via Facebook or on the radio. Ms. Miles Ruby from the Family Resource Center will be with me until 6 o'clock. They will be having a live webinar tomorrow afternoon. We will remind everyone a few more times throughout the show, the when, the where, how to get registered before we close out at 6 o'clock to make sure you all have this information. But we are going out to our first break. We'll be gone for about 2 minutes, and then we'll be right back after this break. Keep it locked for some more Straight Talk on Star 92.7.
Join the conversation. The phone lines are now open. 943-3700. You can also find us on Facebook or email us at straighttalkci@gmail.
Don't let the actions of the few continue to impact the majority. If you know of someone who is taking unnecessary risks with social distancing and curfews, talk to them. Remind your siblings, children, parents, and friends of the importance of social distancing. We will all get through these challenging times, but only if we can all work together. #Stay Home Cayman.
Dear parents and guardians, we deeply care about our students and understand the challenges you may now face during these unprecedented times.
We want you to know that we are committed to ensuring that your child's education continues.
And that you are not alone. We are doing everything we can to make sure no child is left behind.
But to do so, we need your help to get connected and stay connected with you and your child. So, reach out to us and speak with us
about how we can best support you and your needs. Working hand in hand with you is the only way to secure our children's future. We are in this together.
A message from the CIFEC, Clifton Hunter, John Gray, Lehman E. Scott High Schools, and the Lighthouse School.
In this time of crisis, we are right here to help keep the power on.
We are here to serve you. We are committed to ensuring that you have electricity. Without electricity, not many things will work.
We are right here to help keep the power turned on.
We are CC. You can count on us.
Flow is always committed to keeping Cayman connected, but especially during the current COVID-19 pandemic. To assist you while you work and learn from home, Flow is happy to provide you with a free upgrade to your current internet speed. Simply email our local customer care team at k-flowhelp@cwc.com to get your free internet speed upgrade today. Stay safe, Cayman. Flow, keeping Cayman connected. Terms and conditions apply.
Welcome back to Straight Talk with Ruth Anna on Star 927.
We are back, folks, and you are tuned into Straight Talk, brought to you exclusively by Star 92.7 Premium Radio. I am your host, Ruth Anna Young, with you until 6 o'clock this evening, joined this afternoon until 6 as well by Ms. Miles Ruby from the Family Resource Center. We are talking about their upcoming, the fourth of a series of 6 parenting webinars taking place tomorrow. And just for those just tuning in, a reminder, 943-3700 is the line in studio. You can also WhatsApp me with any questions, comments, or concerns that you have, 324-1565, or you can also email me at straighttalkci@gmail.com with any questions you may want to ask Ms. Miles or to add to this conversation. And so, Miles, if you could just remind anyone just tuning in for me, please, tomorrow's webinar, what is the topic of discussion? How do they get registered? How do they contact you? And I think the most important thing is that people may be wondering, well, what does it cost?
Oh, it's my favorite 4-letter word, free. All our services are free. Yeah. From our individual parent coaching to our family skills programs, to all our services are free, and we are still open for business. Just maybe doing it in a different way. Yeah. And as you said, tomorrow is our 4th webinar in a series of 6. It's positive parenting during COVID-19, handling challenging behaviors. We spoke about how to keep it positive last week, and so this week we're building on that. We also have it's at 4:30 on our Facebook page. And to register, you can email frc@gov.ky, or you can call 949-0006. You can also go on our Facebook page and look at the event there. And we also have a web page, frc.gov.ky, and you can register there as well. So there are a lot of different avenues in which you can do so based on what's available to you and what's easiest for you. We also have a Q&A at the end of the webinar. So I believe last week we had over 15 questions, and we try to answer them all. And so we really want parents to take advantage of this free webinar to ask those questions, because they're not alone. So many parents right now are being extra hard on themselves and expecting perfection. And this is just not a time to do that. It's a time to give yourself a break, give your kids a break, maybe let some things go, lower some expectations, and enjoy this time we have together and make the most of it. Because I know when we go back to our new normal, whatever that may look like, I know I don't want to have regrets that I didn't use that time. I may not learn a new instrument. I may not learn how to, bake something I always wanted to bake, because I'm working full time still and I'm busy. And since I'm working from home, it's like I always have something to do. And so I don't get that break, right? And so, I had to let some of those things go. Like, okay, I'm not going to learn a new instrument right now. I thought maybe I could, but that might not have been very realistic. So it's also knowing, what's good for you. How do you keep your cup full? Because I always say, as parents, we can't pour from an empty cup. We have to take care of ourselves more now than any time, because if we don't put on that oxygen mask, like an airplane, what they tell you, if you're traveling with children, if we don't put it on first, we're not going to be any good to ourselves. But more importantly, we will not be available to our children. We won't have anything to offer them, right? So it's not about being selfish. It's about surviving. And if we want to be the best parents we can be, we do have to take care of ourselves and get the sleep we need, eat right, get the exercise we need, keep our routine going, so that we have a sense of control, and we can focus on what we can control and not on what we can't control. And that way, that will also help lower anxiety. And if we're not anxious, our children pick up on that energy. So it's very important that, we take care of ourselves, so then we can come from a place of calm and control. So I always say we want to parent from a place of control. And if we're all up in our emotions and we're anxious and we're stressed out, we're not going to be at our best. We're not going to be coping as well. And when our child does something small, we might make a mountain, out of a molehill. And so it's important that we step back and we self-regulate and we take care of ourselves. If we have to start something new, whether that's meditation or learning that you love bubble baths, whatever it is.
I'm the baker. That's what I do.
You're the baker? Well, that's, I discovered bubble baths. Oh my goodness. I don't remember last time I took a bath until all this started. And it was so funny. My youngest daughter insisted, because she loves baths. And I was like, I don't like baths, and I was naysaying it. But once I was in there, it was lovely, and even some of my parents were like, well, I don't have a tub. I'm like, well, can you take a longer shower?
Yes, I'm the longer shower girl.
Yeah, play some music, put on some candle,
put the lavender,
some nice candles,
Yeah.
Even if it's not maybe it's just your feet, maybe just do a little foot spa, for yourself. But whatever it is, it doesn't have to be big. It could be 10 minutes of just walking outside, being in nature, getting some sunlight, and so it's going to be different for different people. And it's important, you know yourself best and what you need. But also it's a good time to try some different things. And that goes same with parenting. What?
Or watch Netflix if you need.
Or watch Netflix. Sometimes we just want our brains to turn off and not have to think, and just, I call it cake. I just want some cake. I don't want to watch a show that's going to make me think or make me feel sad or make me upset. I want cake. I want a show that makes me laugh, and it's like brain numbing. I don't, so I escape my own reality for a little bit. All right. And so,
I think it's so useful that you've said that because I've had a number moms in particular, say in a variety of ways to me something along the lines of, I wish someone would just tell me it's okay to do the best you can do. Like that's good enough, you know? And I think that when through these webinars and even just you sharing your own story of I just want something that's like cake, right? Give me the Netflix cake, you know,
yeah.
or something that allows you, like you say, escape your own reality. I think that people will look at someone like yourself in the capacity that you are and say, you know what, if she needs time, a moment for herself to be able to get herself prepared for parenting, then that somehow makes it more normal for everyone else, right? And I
Mhm.
think that that is very helpful and I think that's how these webinars are also helpful because parents can see that it is not just them. It is not just them as parents, or it's not this they're only their child that's misbehaving, or it's not only them that needs, and I use misbehavior very broadly, right?
Mm.
Because misbehavior manifests itself in so many different ways depending on the child. But I think it is helpful to parents for parents to first just realize we aren't abnormal. Other people are experiencing this. So it is normal and helpful to come to a place where I can get tools and resources and mechanisms to help manage and make this situation better and to improve myself as a parent. Now, and I don't want to give away um, the meat of the matter in terms of your webinar tomorrow, but I want to give people a little bite-sized bits to take home with them this afternoon. So for those who may wonder, well, what are some of the tools that we may learn to parent positively during a time like this? What are some of those things? If you give me the cliff note version, what are some of
Sure.
the approaches or tools, however you class them, that
Mhm.
parents can use to parent during this time?
Well, just like you said, you can only do the best with what you have. And so if you can come to this webinar and get some more tools, then maybe you could do better. Because
Mm.
if all you have in your parenting tool belt is a hammer, you're going to address every problem like
Mhm.
it's a nail, and that's not going to work,
Mm.
right? And
Mhm.
sometimes what worked in one situation may not work again. So you have to have as many tools in there. And like you said, I don't want to give away all my golden nuggets,
Mhm.
but we have, parents from, suddenly they're having to entertain their toddler all day and work remotely, to
Mhm.
teenagers who are socially isolated and are just miserable because, like their brains crave that peer interaction. That's, I mean, it's biology. They're meant to be doing, be with their peers and find their own tribe and start spreading those wings of independence. So, it is a wide range. And so, I'm going to be talking about, well, this might work with your toddler, this might work with your teen. And one that works really well, regardless of age, and I talked a little bit about it last week, but I'm going to go into more detail this week, is about giving choices.
Mhm.
When you think about the position we are in as adults right now, how so many choices have been taken away from us.
Mhm.
I can't go to the beach when I want to. I can't just leave the house and go shopping when I want to. All these freedoms have been taken away, right? And so when you think about children, they don't get to choose where they live, where they go to school, what they eat. There's so many choices or decisions that are made for them. And so as parents, what if we can empower them and give them that sense of independence? Because kids want to have that sense of personal power, because as adults, as their parents, we have this authority over them. And sometimes they want to exercise some of their own authority. And eventually we want them to make their own choices and learn how to make decisions and be critical thinkers. So we need to give them opportunities to do that. And it could be as simple as, do you want water or do you want milk?
Mhm.
Instead of, here's your milk, or And you always give choices that you're okay with. We call them win-win choices. You don't give them a choice that you're not okay with.
Yeah. And hope that they don't
'Cause
choose it.
right, 'cause what will happen too, when you use this tool, you might say, "Do you want water or milk?" "I want juice." And you just repeat yourself, "Do you want water or milk?" "You decide or I decide." Now they are gonna want to make that decision. They want that choice. So you might have to repeat yourself several times. And as parents, I tell my parents, repeat yourself 2 or 3 times if you need to. Because children's brains work slower. They don't transition as quickly as we do. They don't process things as quickly as we do. We need to give them that time to transition and process what we've asked them and let them think about it. So giving choices, and with teenagers, it could, or children who are in school, it could be, do you want to do your math now or your English? It's no skin off my back, which you do. You can give choices within structure, right? There's still some boundaries there, but they've got some wiggle room as far as what they do first. And even though we might think they should do math first because it's fresh in the morning, they're wide awake, whatever, and they might learn from that experience that, well, maybe I should do math in the morning because this afternoon I just was done. I didn't have the brain power to do it. But that's a good learning opportunity that we don't want to take away from our children, learning through those natural consequences. And we'll talk about some natural and logical consequencing tomorrow too. We don't want to rob our children of these learning opportunities, because I've learned so many times from my mistakes. And as parents, we try to swoop in and save them, and we don't realize that that's really handicapping them when we don't let them learn from their own mistakes through these natural consequences. Of course, safeties, you don't ever want to put them at danger.
Right.
But as the children are small, when children are smaller, the price tag's smaller, and as they get older, the price tag gets bigger. So we want to give them opportunities to think before they act, to think of what could happen. What could the consequences be? And to learn some self-control and think of others, think of themselves, and learn from that experience. So we'll be talking a little bit about that as well. But choices, I think right now, it's so important. Right now we all are so excited because now we get to go to the beach again. And it may not be every day, but it was better than not at all.
Agreed. I'll take
it. Right. I'll take it. And that's how kids are. Like, I'll take it. I'll take the milk because I get to choose. It may not be the juice they want, but it could be anything. Like, do you want to wear the pink pajamas or the purple pajamas? Do you want to play with this or this? Give them options, give them choices. That is so empowering. It just makes kids feel like they're heard, they have a voice, that what they think and feel matter. And they're not just these little puppets that are being dictated what to do, and you just do as they're told and don't ask questions. Because when they get older, we want them to think for themselves. And if they've never had an opportunity to think for themselves, then when they stop listening to the parent, when they become teenagers, who are they going to listen to? They're going to listen to their peers. And they may not be able to stand up for themselves and think for themselves and say, no, that's not a good idea. I don't want to get in that car with you because you've been drinking. And no, I don't want to get in the car because I don't want to get hurt. Not because I don't want to get in trouble. You're right. I don't want to get caught. So, kids, we can't be with them 24/7, especially as they get older. So we need to give them those opportunities to make those choices and decisions when we're not around, to instill those values that are important to us and guide them like that shepherd during these formative years of, hey, what could you have done differently? What's your plan next time? Right? But, let them think, give them that time to think and process it and be.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, I think that's such an important point, because it's, if they're never given the opportunity to learn to think and make choices on their own, I think it is very easy to forget as parents that that's not a muscle that just suddenly develops itself because they're now a teenager or a young adult. And then you wonder why they didn't make a better decision along the way. That's not to say that they won't, even if given the opportunity to strengthen that muscle of making choices. But I think it just in listening to you talk, it's reminded me that I guess young adults going into adulthood are far more, and even children, as they are faced with different decisions, are far probably more likely to be able to choose better for themselves when that's a muscle that they've strengthened, right, for many years.
Absolutely. Decision making is a skill. We're
Hmm.
not born with it. We
Yes.
have to learn how to do it. And as
Mhm.
parents, it's our role and our responsibility to teach them and to guide them and to give them as many opportunities within structure that's age appropriate, that gives them, as you said, time to exercise that muscle. It's only going to get stronger if you use it. It's
Very
it's
true.
and you're not going to get any better at anything if you don't practice it, right? You
Absolutely.
can lose those skills too if you don't practice, if you don't use it continually. And so, and as our children get bigger and more mature and older, they can make bigger decisions.
Yeah.
It's something we call it the V of love. And when you think of the V,
Hmm.
the at the bottom of the V is birth, and at the top of the V is adulthood. And so, what we want to do is give structure as they get older, and within that V are those choices. And as you see, they get older, they get more and more choices as the V opens up, and then eventually they'll fly away and leave the nest. And so what happens so often is, as parents, the V's inverted, and as children, they have all these options, all these choices, and no structure. And then as they start becoming teenagers who suddenly want some independence and some freedom, that V is coming down on them, and now they want to break free from it, and they want more choices, they want more freedom, and they want more opportunities to be independent and express themselves. But as parents, we get, oh my gosh, no, 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 that's not. We get anxious, and we and they just want to rebel.
Yeah.
And so it it's natural for teens to care about their peers and where they are in their brain development. I mean, like I said, until they're 25 or 26, their brains aren't even fully developed. And so
Reminder to all teenage and young
yes.
adult parents.
And so we have to remember that, as adults, we got our full deck of cards. Well, some of us more than others, but you know what I mean? The kids are not even working with a fully functioning brain yet, and so we need to cut them some slack and give them opportunities to make those connections from the back of the brain to the front of the brain, the executive functioning, where they make choices, have self-control, have goals, think of consequencing, all those things that make us an adult. And it, like you said, it's a muscle. They have to learn how to make the connection of using the back of the brain, if that's where they have their knowledge and their skills, but then the front of the brain is where they learn how to use those skills and knowledge. And so it's like the upstairs brain and the downstairs brain. There's a lot of different ways to think of it, but and making decisions is using the front part of the brain, that last part of the brain, to develop when we need to give them those opportunities to make those brain connections and develop that skill. Otherwise, it won't grow, and the brain won't make those connections like they will in other kids that are given those opportunities. It can actually change, how the brain works.
Mm.
So
And
it's
we look
important.
wonder,
It's very
and
important.
wonder, and then we look at adults at 30 and 35 and be like, "Ugh, why are you doing that?" But
Mhm.
and there may be some other explanations as well. But I want to, I touch quickly as we have about 5 minutes left for the remainder of the show. But I know that during this time, especially having been on these types of curfews and lockdowns for so many weeks now, some people, because of health challenges or high risk challenges, have had to stay, I would say, more isolated than others. But generally speaking, as you mentioned, we're all restricted to a certain degree. And certainly, I think above all things, you find families having to spend much more time together, and sometimes in much closer quarters, experiencing so many other things than they're used to. And I think what that and in conversations with parents, some of what that fuels is a shortening of the temper on all sides, right? And you know, people from whether it's anxiety or stress or otherwise, and I say people, not just parents, but also you know, I've heard of, you know, some parents have said, my 8-year-old is having outbursts that I'm not used to, and just these moments of you know, just this extreme emotions. Will there be, during, you know, these parenting webinars, I'm sure it may have come up, but in the webinars that are coming up, whether it's tomorrow or otherwise, will there be education and information for parents to help understand whether the outburst is them or their child? What do you do in those moments, right?
Absolutely. I'll be talking about that tomorrow. And, you know, what can you do as a parent? And also, how can you support your child in that moment? I think so often when we see our children having these meltdowns that we're not used to seeing, or reacting in such a big way to something that seems so minuscule, it triggers something in us. And we have a hard time handling that big emotion. And we just want them to stop crying. You know, it's going to be okay. Stop crying. You're making a big deal out of nothing. And so, you know, one thing I want to also do is help parents look at, well, okay, I need to come from a place of control first. And so we'll be looking at, how can I, as the parent, the adult with a fully functioning brain, you know, how can I take care of myself?
Reminder.
Yes. And then this is the hard part of parenting. I'm not going to say it's easy. And they are going to mess up, just like I have with my 21-year-old who's still here in the home and taking classes. And we've had to, you know, have some conversations. I've had to apologize a few times, you know, just repair, you know, but it's important that, you know, during this time when they're having these behaviors, to get curious instead of judgmental, you know, and put on a different lens. And we're going to be talking about that a little bit tomorrow, because if we have a different perspective, we're going to approach the child differently. You know, if we're looking at this child through a lens of curiosity versus a lens of judgment, we're going to approach this child very differently. It's just human nature. You know, if we're saying to ourselves, this kid is being feisty, they're just pushing my buttons, we're going to approach and react to this child very differently than, wonder what's going on. This isn't normal.
Yes.
Wonder what's getting in the way. What's blocking them? What's driving this behavior? Get more curious, and, you know, put on that detective cap.
So turn into parent detectives. And I think that's a critical skill for parents to remember. But as we have just about a minute and a half left, I want to make sure that for anyone who's caught us on the tail end here and must have missed this information, if you could please just remind everyone, you know, what you'll be covering tomorrow in terms of the broader topic, how they get registered, how they get in touch with you, so that they can get signed up to participate in, should I say, because it's a live webinar and there's time for Q&A, how they participate in the webinar with you guys tomorrow.
Thank you so much. It is tomorrow at 4:30 on the Family Resource Center Facebook page. It's positive parenting during COVID-19 part 2, and we're focusing on how to handle challenging behaviors, because right now we're seeing a lot more. Also, you can register through calling us at 949-0006. You can email us at frc@gov.ky. You can also go on our webpage, frc.gov.ky, and register there. On the Facebook page, I believe you can also register there. So there's a lot of different ways. It is free. We also have a special guest who was with me last week, Miss June South Robinson. She's a school inclusion specialist from John Gray and Clifton Hunters that gives her expertise on some of the challenging behaviors you may have around schooling and homework and schoolwork and you know, parenting in this new role. And again, it's free. There's a Q&A at the end, so come with your questions. We try to answer as many as we can. And it's just, you'll realize you're not alone. It's not just your child. This is a difficult time. And if you can get some more tools, maybe look at things a little differently, come at it with a different perspective, a different approach. Sometimes you may not even need to correct, especially, if you make that connection and figure out what's behind that behavior and deal with that, then a lot of times behavior will go away. But we will be dealing with what if you've done all that and what can I do next? So we will be looking at some consequencing and some effective consequencing and what that may look like, in a positive way, in a positive parenting way.
Positive parenting through COVID-19. Ms. Miles, thank you so much for joining me this afternoon. It's a pleasure to have you on for the very first time here on Straight Talk. I'm sure it won't be our last, and I look forward to getting feedback from tomorrow's show, as your webinar tomorrow at 4:30. And which I think many parents certainly need those resources. And I thank you and the rest of the team at FRC for all that you are doing. And thank you to Mr. Lee Von Bodden for tuning in via Facebook. Guys, it is 6:01 p.m. on the Star 92.7 clock, which means I'm out of here. I'm back again tomorrow at 5 o'clock sharp. I'll be joined in part by Mr. Michael Miles from Inspire Cayman, who currently has the exciting news that he has received donations to sponsor 10 women who want guidance, improving their finances. And so women will get the opportunity to learn how they may be able to apply for those sponsorships and to benefit from those. So I will talk with him in part tomorrow as well. And so please tune in, same time, same place, 5 p.m. sharp for Straight Talk on Star 92.7.
Imagine you had a bag of candy and someone told you that one piece was poisoned. Now, would you risk eating any of